There's 31 commanders from Wilds of Eldraine, and we are ranking them all from worst to best.
I'm Mia, and I like taking laps in empty mall parking lots.
I'm BZ. I like doing donuts in mall parking lots. Joined by Amber, also, don't even know if you can see her, but we're the Nitpicking Nerds, and we're sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. You can go use code
NERDS
at checkout to save 5%. This is tangible percentages on your dollars. If you spend $20, you're saving one of those dollars, and that's just from us. You just got to use code
NERDS
at checkout.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
You can use our EU and US links to buy your sleeves, and we get a little bit of a kickback if you do.
It's just a nice way to support the channel and yourself at the same time. We're also sponsored by Moxfield. There's an ad somewhere in the video. Guess where it is? You're wrong, etc. And what else?
Happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today and your pets.
Yeah, so as you know, we've ranked every commander in existence. They're all on a master list you can check out in the description if you want. We're going to factor in all the Wilds of Eldraine's commanders and tell you where they rank among all commanders ever in the categories of power, fun, artwork, coolness, and uniqueness, all things that lead to an awesome commander. This is not only a power tier list. You can just ignore the other 4 categories if you want to know how strong these cards are. And we're going to start out with the worst one in the set, Ruby Daring Tracker. She's above Mr. Orfeo and below Varus at 1464. 2 mana for a 1/2 haste. You can tap her for a red or a green, and when she attacks, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, she gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and that's it.
I really like the fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood and all that, but this is not impressive.
Yeah, she was, like, let's just discount the card, because the card doesn't really do anything, and I don't think you should ever really play it as a commander. It's hard to have fun with a card that doesn't do anything. It's obviously not unique, but I like that she was a big player in the story, actually. She helped Kellen, the main character. We'll get to plenty of him later, but she basically helped him the entire time. Finding the 3 artifacts from the 3 witches, which, again, we'll get to. Ruby was super important to the story, but not important to anyone's commander deck.
That is really cool lore, but if I were to play a red-green commander, I don't think this would be even the top 20 that I'd pick.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Neva, Stalked by Nightmares. She's above Ryusei and above Drana at 1448. What does she do?
Neva, Stalked by Nightmares, is a 2/2 for 2 white and a black. She has Menace, and when she enters the battlefield, you can return target creature or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on her, then scry 1. I'm really loving the enchantment synergies that they're bringing in that aren't, like, Selesnya themed, but I don't think this is really powerful or really hitting the mark for me.
It's mostly just like a way to return enchantments or creatures that I don't really like the last ability a ton. I like the fact that they're promoting sacrificing enchantments and stuff. I love that design space. Neva's just not going to be your go-to option. She really wasn't in the story at all, so I think we can just move on to Sir Armont, the Redeemer, at 1425 above Tobias and below Patron of the Kitsune. 3 white green for a 4/4. Enters the battlefield, create a monster roll token attached to a creature you control, and enchanted creatures you control get +1/+1. This is like a clunky anthem that you have to build around. It's not just a full anthem. We have cards that cost 5 in green-white that give you an anthem, and this isn't even that. It creates auras, which is probably the interesting part of it. This is just one of the, like, designed for a limited. It's not designed for commander, I don't think.
No, definitely not. It's one of those disposable enchantment cards, and that's cool in the set as a whole, but outside of it, there's so much better that you can pick.
Yeah, she has good art, and she has an okay story. She's the one who, like, redeems the red-tooth elves who are cursed to turn into werefoxes. Just the most random story of all time. But I'm sure, obviously that's fairy tale roots that we'll get to for all these, but, like, what the heck? Like, Neva was based on Sleeping Beauty. How about the next one?
The next one is Old Flitterfang at 1421. He is below Alharu's Solemn Ritualist and above Brydenlin, the Moon Kraken. He's a 3/4 for 4 and a black that flies, and at the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, create a food token. You can also pay 2 and a black and sack another creature or artifact. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I don't really think this is that good because if you're going for a rat commander, there's so much better. There's like Harmonics or, Ink Eyes or whatever really. And if you're going for tokens when things die, you could always do like Mahadi or something, and get treasures instead. I think there's just way better no matter what avenue you're trying to go.
It's slow, it's clunky. I do like the potential to get 4 foods on the go around, but I think that's all this card's worth. No story to speak of. Let's go to Johan. He's above Drakuseth and below Glissa Sunseeker at 1407. He's 2 blue-red for a 2/5. You can look at the top card of your library anytime, and once each turn you can cast an instant or sorcery spell from the top of your library. One of the most bare-bones Izzet commanders I've ever seen. You stack your deck full of instant sorceries, and then every once in a while, if you cast from the top of your library, it's basically like drawing a card.
If I'm going to play Izzet Instants and Sorceries Matter, I'm going to be playing Vadric or
anything else.
Izzix or Mizzix, I should say, or even Melik or whatever, really.
You're just never going to this. It's kind of pricey for what you get. It doesn't help you cast instant or sorceries. It's just like, hey, you get a little bit of an extra access. You still got to pay the full cost. This is obviously the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He's always up to his old antics of he can't quite take care of the house while the master's away.
He also can't take care of my commander deck because there's way better.
Goodbye, Johan. Johan, who's next?
Next is Ash Party Crasher. She's at 1362 and below Annexon Symede and above Cayenne Dean of Substance. Ash is a 2/2 for red and a white that has haste, and she has the celebration mechanic. Whenever she attacks, if 2 or more non-land permanents entered this battlefield under your control this turn, put a 1/1 counter on her. This is based around Cinderella and that sort of lore, which I think is really, really cool, but it's just not that impressive of an ability. Just a 1/1 counter on her? That's it?
Yeah, the archetypes for limited this time around, they're all based on one fairy tale, and the legendary creature for each uncommon pairing is like the main character. This is Cinderella. She's like a peasant who dressed up like a soldier, had this great party, and along with the person you'll see next, they got like attacked and they kind of defended it a little bit. There's just nothing here yet. We're getting cool lore, we're getting cool art. I like the design of it. I've heard some people actually have some fun with this commander. I just don't think it offers you much.
Yeah, I think that it's not tough to get, but the payoff is not worth it because there's almost none.
Although it is similar to Kelith Sunmane Familiar, but Kelith does have partner, so maybe just go with that if you're trying to like look for this type of thing. Because Kelith, it enters with less power, it doesn't have haste, but it triggers both of your commanders. It's one of your commanders, so there's another one. And you don't have to meet that weird restriction. There's this restriction on getting the counter on it, which is having 2 things enter. Yeah,
I really think that there's no real place this wants you to go. Like, it doesn't want you to be Voltron. It's not trying to like spam permanents for the most part. And the 1/1 counter means almost nothing in the long run. So what are you really trying to do here?
It's interesting. There's just not a lot there. Let's go to Godric, Cloaked Reveler at 1326. Above Thrun, the last troll, and below Atarka, World Render. 1 red for a 3/3 haste. As long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, he's actually a 4/4 dragon with fire breathing, but it fire breathes all your dragons. So this is the guy who's like went to the ball in disguise as a human. He's actually a dragon. When the red cap goblins, I think they're goblins, attacked the party, he's like, all right, that's it. And then he blows them all up.
I think this could be kind of cool if you're doing mono red dragons, which we rarely see because we have such like Ur-Dragon, Scion of the Ur-Dragon.
We're spoiled.
And all of that. But if you're going mono red dragons, giving all of them fire breathing could be a really interesting, trait.
Yeah, if you have 6 dragons, 6 mana gives you 36 power. Godric's, we're starting to get there. Like, I obviously clearly see what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put a bunch of dragons in your deck. He's cheap, he has haste, he's got that ability. It's not that hard to have 2 things enter, especially since the turn you play him, he counts towards the celebration.
Yeah, I don't think he's great, but I think this is way more doable of a commander or usable than anything we've seen prior on this list.
Like Godric. He's a nice little fair card. Who is next?
Next is Troyan, Gutsy Explorer. He's at 1305 and he's below the Peregrine Dynamo and above Nath of the Gilt Leaf. Troyan is a 1/3 for 1 blue and a green that says you can tap him to add Simic, but you can spend this mana only to cast spells with mana value 5 or greater or spells with X in their mana costs. If you pay a blue mana and tap him, you can draw a card, then discard a card. Simic is the color of value, just like Value Town in general, so I expect more from my Simic commanders when I see them.
Yeah, at least we're getting pointed in a direction this time. I like that it's, all these uncommons do point you in a direction, but I need to be able to, like, do something with it in commander. And casting 5 drops, I can do that. So Troyan's going to add some mana. It's really not an exceptional amount of mana. Plenty of cards can do that, even at the common and uncommon level. But the drawing into the discarding could be something. And then I just like that he at least gives you a little bit of a path. This is Jack and the Beanstalk. He's from Ravnica, but traveled through an Omen path to Eldraine, and he's loving it. He's having the best day of his life. He helped Kellen and Ruby climb up there to meet a giant person who's guarding a magic mirror.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I could definitely see this in a budget deck or some sort of lower power, but in the end, I don't think it's really worth it. It's just like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that also is nice, like drawing and discarding, but other than that, it's like, that's it?
I think maybe there's like, we got these 10 like uncommon lower power commanders. That'd just be cool to see like someone do a budget deck for all of them. I think you can get a nifty little, like they're not garbage. They're just the worst ones in the set so far.
Next is Tegwell, Duke of Splendor. He's at 1295 and he's below Jor-Kadeen the Prevailer and above Queza, Augur of Agonies. Tegwell is a 2/3 for 1 blue and a black with flying and death touch. He gives other fairies you control +1/+1, and whenever another fairy you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. I'm really happy that we actually get a fairy commander that's specifically good for fairies at this point. We waited so long and it was so requested from everyone in the community. So I'm happy we finally have that dedicated archetype.
Yeah, this isn't the best one, but it's still here. I think you've wanted to use like Bitter Blossom and like these fairy token things, Fairy Slumber Party's a new one, and just start sacrificing all these fairies and getting mad value. The Anthem's nice. This is totally a fair card. I have nothing against this card. The where it suffers though and has less points is because there's no lore. It's just kind of like a high fade Duke. Hi, Amber.
I definitely want to try this if I rebuild a Layla to be more of like a fairy type deck to buff all of them, but I don't really see this going outside of that unless you want to do some weird like changeling type deal.
Okay, that'd be cool. Time for Gilwain, the casting director. He's at 1233 above Bill Fenry and below Tuvasa. And he's 3 mana for a 2/3. When he enters or another non-token creature you control enters, you choose one. You create a royal roll token attached to it, a sorcerer roll, or a monster roll attached to it. They all have very minor, slightly different upsides. This is going to create auras pretty easily. It actually kind of creates a lot of them over the course of the game. I think the auras themselves are low impact, but once you build the deck to be like, whenever enchantments enter, whenever this happens, if your auras creatures get so-and-so, you're talking.
I really like this actually because of the idea that you can create multiple or different types of roles. I actually saw it described somewhere that roles were like the standard legal version of stickers or something like that.
Kinda.
And I really like the idea that they're taking the stickers but making it less confusing.
Still a little clunky. There's a lot of
Definitely.
words and none of them can fit on the card. Like there's no reminder text. You just got to have all of those things
Just
next
turn
to
it
you.
upside down.
But I think the flavor is pretty home run spot on, right? Like he's literally like, you're the monster. Here you go. And then you're like, I'm a monster.
I really like it too. I really like the idea of roles. I just wish they were more concise and just better. I mean, I know they're hashing it out, but
Yeah, maybe a little bit easier to understand. I'm not a set designer. I just know that we're doing commanders like Lord Skitter, the Sewer King at 1198 above Thrix and below Rilsa Rail. Why don't we get a read on that boy?
Lord Skitter is a 3/3 for 2 and a black that says, whenever another rat enters the battlefield under your control, exile up to 1 target card from an opponent's graveyard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 black rat creature token with, this creature can't block. I mean, this is definitely better than the old Flitter Fang.
We already forgot.
I already forget what it is. And with the rat synergies and all of that, but it's still not that great. But I do like the fact that it is playing towards a certain archetype that actually has support, and I think I'd rather put this in the 99 of my rat decks.
I was just going to say that. It makes rats. That's nice. But the rat payoff is like, I get to exile a card from my graveyard. That feels more skewed towards like standard. Like this card just needed, a small little buff. And they're like, well, what's the smallest amount of bonus we can give to your rats? So they just give it a card exile. I think Skitter's cool. He's like a rat king. I didn't really know that Eldraine had anthropomorphic rats, but there. He says rats are going to rule the world, and there's this guy Totentance, we'll see later, which is a great name, and he gives him a flute or a pipe that can summon rats. I wonder what that's based on.
I wonder if he's having a feud with Chiromonics. Aren't they both rat kings?
They are both rat kings. Would you rather be the rat king or the sewer king?
Oh God, maybe sewer king.
There's other life in the sewer.
Yeah, there's other life, and you're ruling over all of it. But rats, as the most part, like they're mostly gonna be like tokens, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So Lord Skitter, decent in the 99, a little bit lackluster as like the rat payoff you've been looking for. How about Obira, Dreaming Duelist? She is 1136 above Ariel and below Oscar. This one's simple. Blue-black for a 2/2 flash flyer. Whenever another fairy enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. I kind of just like this better. I'd rather get it on the front end when I just explode all my fairies. That is not, I could not think of a word. But when you just explode all your fairies from your hand into play, drain all the opponents out, make a bunch of tokens. This is like so simple, but it's so simple and juicy. I love it. I love the flash too.
You know, when I explode all of my fairies from my hand, especially the flash exploding fairies, you can definitely get everyone to lose a little bit of life.
I didn't describe it good, but the card's good. It seems pretty solid. Nice, fair little commander. The only lore that I think Obira is the daughter of Talion, the kindly lord, one of the reasons for the Wicked Slumber, which is the big conflict in the set. There's nothing else, though. I don't even think Obeer does anything. She's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's our daughter.
Yeah, no, I thought the flavor text that basically she said she's sleeping, she's wandering, and she's trying to fight people in her sleep. She
fights people in her sleep.
I love it.
She's
That's
such
great.
a good duelist. And that's what Mia does, too.
Moving up on those is Emodane, the Pyrohammer. She's at 1120, and she is below Pramicon, Sky Rampart, and above Jetfire, Ingenious Scientist. Emodane is a 4/4 for 2 red and a red that says, whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control that targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, Emodane deals that much damage to each opponent. Yeah, I was thinking about this, and it was just lightning bolting, and then everyone gets dealt 3 damage, and that's okay, but I feel like this is kind of single target, and I don't think that's great for like the longevity of Commander, you know?
You have to play a lot of bad cards to make this card actually pretty sweet. So like the 4 out of 10, I think it's balanced. It might play more like a 6 when it's in play, but your whole deck kind of has to suck a little bit, or at least be very inefficient. You know, let's say 80% of your removal spells are now single target, and Emodane is great. It's great when I can deal, 6 to each opponent and kill a creature for like 2 mana with some delve spell like Magmatic Sinkhole. But when I don't have Emodane, it's going to be a little clunky, and she's kind of expensive considering it's not like she does anything immediately when she enters or gets you the value back right away. You got to kind of don't tap out for her so you can play something right away and then get some damage in. I like that. I like that you have to actually build your deck a certain way, but just know that there's some risks when you stack lightning bolts in your deck.
I just don't think this is too great. I'm not sure if this is a route I would go because it's so risky, right? It's like high risk and I guess high reward because you're not able to play as many board wipes as you like because most of your stuff benefits over like single target. So that's not as great. And if you don't have that, like if you don't have your commander out, then you just have single target removal. That's probably more expensive than if you were just to get board wipes or something that sweeps a little bit more.
Yeah, the fun for this deck will be high highs and low lows when you can't really do anything. And high when you go, you start slinging spells, making mana, and just like wrecking everybody. That'll be some cool turns you can have for sure. Emodane in the lore actually didn't really do anything. She's kind of a chump despite being in the story like a decent amount. She just kind of seems like, I'll take Joe's wrestling terms. She's a jobber. She just loses every fight. She never wins. And I don't know how I'm supposed to root for her when she can't win anything. And she's basically just like a side character who loses.
That's like a sad underdog. In Wizard's mind, maybe you're supposed to root for her. You're like, yeah, you never win. You got to win one.
She wins off screen. She's like, I'm a decorated warrior in like the Phyrexian invasion, and my arm got chopped off, and she has like a magical wooden arm from like the Fae. They don't really touch on that, but trust me, she wins. But she goes to a different school. she totally won a lot, guys.
Yeah, you don't know my boyfriend. He goes to a different summer camp.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to Baluna Grand Squall at 1095 above Baron and below Gisela the Broken Blade. Green, blue, red for a 4/4 trample. Permanent spells you cast and have an adventure cost 1 less to cast, and she has an adventure. Seek frills for 2 green, blue, red. Mill 7 cards, then put all cards that have an adventure from among the milled cards into your hand. I like this card a lot. I think it's cool to pay off adventures in a neat way where you want to cast the adventure spell first and then cast the commander after to get the payoff of all the cards you just drew. I think it's a little weak, but I don't think a weak commander means it's bad or you shouldn't play it. Like, that's why we have 5 categories. I think this is a super fun card. I love the art. I love that she's on a gingerbread house. She's the giant that Jack and the Beanstalk Troyan leads Ruby and Kellen, our main character, up the beanstalks to take the mirror or borrow the mirror from Baluna. There's so many named characters. The story is actually pretty deep, a little bit more intricate than some of the previous ones, but Baluna's cool. She seems like a nice little sassy lady. She's got a bunch of pets, including the Goose Mother.
I think this is really fun, and I think if you build it, it'll play super well, but it definitely is lower power, and I'm not sure how many adventures are good enough to like really support it, and if you pack all of them in there, I'm not sure how kind of cohesive your deck will be.
This one's like calling to me a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I want to see somebody's budget brew or just a regular brew of Baluna, because I think budget probably looks similar since the adventures aren't that expensive. But like, you've got the Edgewall Innkeeper, you've got the Lucky Clover, you've got the new Lucky Clover like creature
Lucky
version.
Clover 2?
Yeah, Lucky Clover 2, the non-banned and standard version. I think this is cool. I respect anyone who builds this deck.
I can definitely see it spiking a little bit in the power level if we get more Eldraine type sets with more adventures out.
Maybe they'll do it in like Modern Horizons 3. I don't know.
Up next is Elevere of the Wild Court at 894. She's below Greasefang, Okiba Boss, and above Kulfner, the last U. Elevere is a 4/4 for 2 green and a white that says, whenever she enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a virtuous roll token attached to another target creature you control. That's the roll that says, the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. Whenever an enchanted creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I honestly really like this. I think it's a lot of fun, encourages you to go wide, encourages you to put all of these little enchantments on a bunch of different creatures. And again, it's just another new take to the enchantment type. And I'm really here for all of these rolls.
This is the roll that we read because this is the roll that actually has text on it. It's like way better than the rest because I'm pretty sure it's only on this card. She comes down as immediate value if you don't answer her. She has continuous value. She will draw you cards. She will create more, all that glitters on your creatures. And you can only have one at a time, but that's why you go wide, like Mia said, and you just start stacking them up. And this is a really strong card. It basically just does everything. It slices and dices.
Yeah, I really like the fact that once it comes down, you only need one creature, and it doesn't matter how good or bad the creature is in general, because the more creatures you're gonna come down, and the more you attack with her or flicker her, depending on what you do, like the more value you're gonna accrue.
Yeah, Elevator's sweet. She doesn't really have lore. This is one of the precon commanders. They often don't have a lot of story to speak of. The art is totally middle of the road. I think this is a decently unique card, though. I mean, seeing as it's the only virtuous roll card, it's got to be somewhat unique.
I really like the virtuous roll, and I wish it was on more cards than just this one in the Commander precon. I would love a chance to try other virtuous roll type deals away from just her.
Yeah, I'm less interested in sorcerer roll and more interested in the ones that are like, oh, I just get a ton of stuff? Okay. Sheree of the Numbing Depths. It's 844. She's the blue-white uncommon legend above Gearson Star and below Teriel, Reckoner of Souls. 2 blue-white for 2/3. ETB, tap a creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. Whenever you tap one or more untapped creatures your opponents control, you draw a card, but only once each turn. Not all of these 10 uncommon legends are lame like some of the bottom ones. This one's actually just sweet. It's a payoff that isn't Timon and Rhoda for like tapping creatures. It gives you honestly like a lot for what this card is. It's a 4-mana uncommon.
I think that it is so good that there's actually some good uncommons here. And I really like the payoff that they're actually supporting tapping your opponent's creatures. Like Verity Circle is really good, but that's only like 1 or 2 cards you can name that really support that in the long run.
Now there's like 10 or 12, and let's just get to critical mass. Like you can play all the like tiny little, Bluster Squall, Githzerai Monk, and just get infinite value on it. Use your like one-off, there's like one in a pressure point, tap a creature, draw a card. It's like, well, I'll tap a creature and draw 2 cards, and just you'll never be able to get through combat damage on this deck. It's going to be really fun. This looks like one of the most fun, if not the most fun, uncommon legend from the set.
Yeah, I like the fact that it supports icing down your opponent's creatures too, because I know that some decks and just really longer games in general really falter if there's no board wipes because the board can get so clogged. But it's like, no, there's another way. You don't have to play those.
Yeah, you don't have to play 87 board wipes. You could just push through combat damage. Sheree's like a home run. This is the Lady of the Lake, but I thought Emery was the Lady of the Lake. Why is there a second Lady of the Lake? Why not just do Emery of Numbing Depths?
She's the Lurker of the Lake, right? I thought this was different.
Well, yeah, Emery's the Lurker of the Loch, but she's based on the fairy tale like the Lady in the Lake.
Oh.
And this is just the same thing. It's just like a merfolk in water. Who else is this supposed to be?
Bro, there's like more than one lake.
Every lake needs a lady?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind. I completely rescind that. And Sheree, you're not stepping on anybody's turf.
Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge is next. She's 756 and she's under Henrika Domnathi and above Cerdin the Shipwright. Greta is a 3/3 for 1 black and a green that says when she enters the battlefield, create a food token. If you pay green and sack a food, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature, only as a sorcery though. You can also pay 1 and a black and sack a food to draw a card and lose 1 life. Food has gotten so much synergy lately, and I'm really happy to see it because food was okay in the very beginning when it first came out. It's like, oh, I could gain a little bit of life, or if I need to sack an artifact, that's fine. But I'm happy we have more of a dedicated commander with like a little bit of value to draw cards, and then just like a little bit of value to just put counters on stuff.
Yeah, it's about as powerful as all the other like mid to lower power legends, kind of middle of the road as far as like average commanders go. But the flavor is so good. Not even literal flavor. She like kills candy monsters. Because she's obviously Gretel, but Hansel in this version died to a witch who like cannibalized him, I guess. Well, that's kind of what they do. And she's like, nope, I'm done. Screw you. And she's ripping through all these monsters.
She doesn't need a twin. She has the power of both of them.
She has the power of 2 humans. So up next, we got Totentant's Swarm Piper at 742 above Rowan Kenrith and below Zamone. 1 black red for a 2/3. When he or another non-token creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 black rat that can't block, and you can pay 1 and a black to give target attacking rat death touch until end of turn. Yes, I will be saying Totentants every time like that. This is the, what is it, the Piper of something?
The Pied Piper?
Pied Piper? Yeah, he summons rats with his little...
You know, Totentants, it really helps you get those red cards into your rat decks if that's something you ever wanted. But that's really awesome that you get the payoff of having rats for having other things die.
Yeah, and like, wait a minute, because this card is just actually great. It's pretty like head and shoulders above the other uncommon ones we've seen before and most of the other commanders at all, because it doesn't need to be a rat deck. All your creatures just have a second life. You sacrifice whatever. Reassembling skeleton, great. Nether trader, just keep sacrificing it and bringing them back to get more rats to trigger ETBs or dies or sack those rats to do extra things. Kind of a stacked card for an uncommon.
Yeah, I really do actually like this. I really like the fact that you can pay mana into his ability too if you just have some left over, if you played all your cards for the turn and that's really it. Just to give that little bit of extra damage or just kill a creature real quick. Like, that's pretty nice.
It's relevant because I think it's relevant if you never activate it. Just existing, the threat of activation means I can now attack my 1/1 into your 5/5 and just know that you're not going to block. And even if you do, I'll keep you honest and destroy your 5/5 for nothing. And I'll take the monarchy from you thanks to Totentants. Totentants!
You know, that 1 damage really starts to add up after a while, and VZ will always go, Monarch for 1, but he'll say that now, tap the rat, and then have the activation up, so I can't.
With so my Totentants! Shout out to Totentants for having the best name in the set. Who is next, Mia?
Next is Alayla, Cunning Conqueror. She is at 658 and below Joyrail, Voice of Zalafir, and above Teysa, Orzhov Scion. Alayla is a 2/4 for 2 blue and a black for a flyer that says, whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you create a 1/1 fairy rogue creature token with flying. Whenever 1 or more fairies you control deal combat damage to a player, go target creature that player controls. I'm not really sure how many times I'm going to be using this card to make a playing my spells on other opponents' turns, considering we do have Nimrus for that.
Yeah, it's already a fairy, but you do get fairies for this. If you have a fairy flash deck, here you go.
I also like the fact that since these little diddly creatures have evasion, you could just swing them out at people, just 1 damage and then just goad their creatures. And, it's just per player, right? So
this is going to be really fun, and it totally reflects the flavor of this card, which has amazing art, by the way, really exceptionally good art. They just went hard on this for some reason. But yeah, they're like, oh, tick you for 1 here. And actually, this thing will be now attacking, but not me. Thank you very much. And it's totally what Alayla wants to do. She's a long-term kind of prankster where she doesn't want to give you a wedgie. She wants to make you mad and have a bad day so that you give someone else a wedgie.
Yeah, she puts you in a bad mood and then you shove someone else in a locker.
Exactly, and that's going to be your opponents. Next is Elsa. Who is that?
Elsa is Hilda of the Icy Crown. She's at 566. She's right below Kaidel, Chosen of Krufix, and above Zaxara, the Exemplary. Hilda is a 3/4 for 2 white and blue. Whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, you may pay 1. When you do, choose 1. You can either create a 4/4 white and blue elemental creature token. You can put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. You can also scry 2, then draw a card. I mean, this is an even better payoff than the commander we just talked about. And I love the versatility on this. Creating a body, or buffing your entire team, or just scrying 2 and drawing a card. You're never going to see one of those and go, I don't know, wouldn't like to do that right now. That sucks.
No thanks. I guess I'll just do nothing. Yeah, Hilda's awesome. Obviously, it's not Elsa. It's the Snow Queen. That's what Elsa's also based on. If someone walked up to me and said, this is Elsa, I'd just be a little sad inside.
This is Elsa. Yeah, I guess.
I guess. Are you 6?
But it is a really cool effect, and this is the payoff I want to see for tapping my opponent's creatures.
Yeah, it's a super cool card. Obviously, referencing all that stuff is cool, and I'm everyone who wants to play the card because it looks like Elsa or the Snow Queen, or even because it looks like your mom. Feel free. It's powerful. It's fun enough. I think tapping down things may get stale, but I'm not going to really dock it too many points for that. It's fun. It's got great art. She's one of 3 witch sisters, is the first one we've gotten to, that are so there's Talion, the fairy lord that we'll get to, but Hilda, her sister Agatha, and her sister Ariat are 3 heavily inspired witch sisters who helped cast the Wicked Slumber on everybody, and it kind of got out of hand and started affecting like everybody. So everybody's falling asleep, not just the Phyrexians like it was originally intended. So then Kellen, our hero, and Ruby are going off to like take artifacts from them to like reverse it.
Moving on to the Goose Mother at 494 under Samut and above Radagast. The Goose Mother is a 2/2 for X, blue, and a green. It has flying, and it says the Goose Mother enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. When it enters the battlefield, you create half X food tokens, rounded up, and when it attacks, you can sacrifice food. If you do, draw a card. Okay, I really love the Goose Mother. I like the fact that it fuels itself to draw cards because it's making all those foods, and I just love how kind of stupid it looks. It's like flailing all over with all of its necks, and I don't really like geese in real life, but I love the fact that this is on like doubling season and this and so many arts. It just looks really funny.
Yeah, as far as I know, this thing has a really weird long name, but it's Balluna's pet, and it's just a giant monster goose, and it's also like, hey, Mother Goose. It's like when you switch it around, the Goose Mother, I feel like I'm in danger.
I mean, it's basically a Hydra goose, right? Which honestly is more terrifying to me than a Hydra.
That's a lot of honking.
They have a lot of teeth too.
If you ever play Gilded Goose on Arena and hear the honk honk, picture that like times 8. I hope that's what this does. When you cast it, like Arena registers what X is and it honks that many times.
I would hate that.
That would play it just for that. But it's nice that the tax works pretty well because it always enters as a 2/2 and just gets a little bit bigger. You always get food out of it. Total like home run for nonsense levels, and it's a playable card. It'll function.
Yeah, I really, really am down for this. I want to see a list.
Okay, but if you thought Goose Hydra was ridiculous, we are going to move to Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender. 487 above Lobelia, Defender of Bagan, and below the Swarm Lord. 2 mana for a Food Knight. She's a 3/1. She has Trample, Hexproof, and Haste as long as an opponent controls a Planeswalker, and whenever another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on her and scry 1, and you can pay 2, tap, and sack her to gain life equal to her power. So the Hexproof, Haste, Trample, not the most relevant. The sacrificing her for power could be cool, but she actually can get pretty big over time. This is like definitely a functional card, but come on. This is the character from the Throne of Eldraine trailer, not Wilds of Eldraine, the Throne of Eldraine trailer where Garruk eats her boyfriend and she gets super pissed off and somehow she got knighted. Like, just amazing.
That is really funny. And I saw all of the teaser art for this, and I really do like the lore behind it. I just wish there was a way to make that first ability a little bit more relevant. It's not like we can just give out planeswalkers left and right.
Yeah, it's going to be relevant for like Modern and Standard maybe. Commander less so, but like she can still be real scary. And gaining life in the late game when she's like a 12/12 if she's going to die anyway maybe, and you have her Vigilance or something, that's very real.
Yeah, that could be a good chunk later, especially in colorless.
Yeah, I just really want the trample up front. That's the part but you're going to have to give it to her manually. That's fine. You can do that. Who's next?
Next is Corvold, Gleeful Glutton. Corvold is at 483 below Hannah Ship's Navigator and above Rashmi and Ragavan. Corvold is a 4/4 for 5 black, red, and green that says, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each card type among permanents you've sacrificed this turn. He is a Flampler with haste. He also says when he deals combat damage to a player, put X 1/1 counters on him and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanent types among cards in your graveyard. I think they saw the first Corvold and were like, "Ooh, wait, this was a little too busted. Let's tone that back a little." I think this is still interesting and still plays to that sack theme, but I'm kind of sad that it has to be among permanent types in your graveyard, so you can't sack those disposable like foods and treasures and token creatures or whatever to get that value.
Yeah, you got to sack Terramorphic Expanse and I don't know, Sir Ginger and like your Tybalt Planeswalker or something. Corvold's cool. It makes you think. It's got a high ceiling. You can do a lot with it. You give it double strike and just get even more stuff going. The tax can be reduced, which is always great, but it can only be reduced so much. There's only, like 8 or 9 card types now. Battles do help, though. Don't forget that battles exist and that battles can reduce Corvold. He was a human noble who was a jerk or something, and then they cursed him to become a dragon, and I kind of feel bad for everybody at his wedding because he ate them all. That makes me sad. I don't know. I feel for those people.
Yeah, weddings are supposed to be happy. I would definitely put enchantment sagas in this, though, because they do sacrifice themselves at the end. Mm-hmm. So that would count towards the cost reduction and the enchantment type in your graveyard. Plus, like, recurring value over a few turns never hurts.
Yeah, I like that. Get your sagas, get your battles, and get your area to the Charmed Apple, 420 above Rodolph and below Yurda, Yurlock. 1 white black for a 2/4. Each creature that's enchanted by an aura you control can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. And at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses X and you gain X, where X is the number of auras you control. So huge props for just putting the payoff and not having this make 1,000 auras when it enters. I think those designs are boring. They are stronger, but they're just kind of like snoozing. This to me makes me want to work for it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what auras do I need to put in my deck? And it's kind of interesting. Super, like, gets the wheels turning for like deck building.
Yeah, I really wish that this wasn't just Orzhov colors, because I would have loved to put like Smoke Spirit Aid and that sort. But the roles actually do have a payoff with her, and I am happy to see that.
Yeah, this is like your win condition, and it helps stem the bleeding. People can't attack you when you start throwing stuff on their creatures. The art is amazing. This is the evil queen from Snow White, and randomly, I feel like I wasn't expecting this. I thought this was just key art for the set. This is like the main antagonist. She was basically the reason that this Wicked Sleep is kind of like going out of control. She's the person who kind of like can control people while they're sleeping and like can put them to sleep more. And she was like leading an army against King Will Kenrith, who we'll get to, was trying to like defend the place. And Kellen and Ruby are there, and they're trying to take the magic apple from her, so her powers are lessened. And then she's working with Ashiok also. Ashiok loves when people are asleep, so he's like, hey, can you put more people to sleep for me? They've got some like very unclear, like bigger plan. And Ashiok, look, they've burned us with Ashiok before. Ashiok never does anything. Ashiok always says they're going to do something, goes, whoa, there's this thing, I'm going to go check it out. And then you never hear from them again. But this time at the end of the story, they capture Ariat, Kellen's a hero, etc. But then Ashiok frees Ariat from her prison and is like, we got stuff to do, and then like takes her away to some other plane.
Yeah, and then you won't see Ashiok again.
I swear to God.
That's the point. That's like Ashiok's a ghost. You just go, ooh, we're taking you. Where are you going? Nowhere.
Where are we going? I'll see you in 5 years with a different plan. You won't even hear from me again. But now Ashiok and Ariat are like teamed up. I think Ariat might be like a villain like through this Omen Path arc that's like 3 years down the road. Like that could be sweet. You know, you thought she was the Wicked Queen. No, she's like the antagonist.
I really like this art the best out of the 3 sisters or witches that we see. They're sister witches, I think. And I would want to build this, not just because of the roles and stuff, because I do think that's very flavorful, but it's just cool looking.
I want to jump through these hoops.
The last sister is Agatha of the Vile Cauldron at 359. She's below Commodore Guff and above Sram. Agatha is a 1/1 for a green and a red that says activated abilities of creatures you control cost X less to activate, where X is Agatha's power. This effect can't reduce the mana to less than 1. You can also pay 4 red and a green that says, other creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and haste until end of turn. I think there's so many good activated abilities nowadays, and especially since she does come down so cheap, and there's so many ways to give counters and up power in green and red, I think that this could be just a lot of value.
This is awesome. We might even be underrating it for power. I think there's probably a ton of ways to go infinite, even though she can't reduce to less than 1. I don't think it matters. I think there's plenty of activated abilities that can generate mana or generate stuff for her. Agatha's awesome. I love this. Looks like one of the most fun commanders from the set. She's scary. She comes down early, and you're like, oh my God, they're going to pump that Agatha to like a 6/6, and I'm screwed.
I really like the fact that she does give trample too, even if it is at the cost of less stats. Because, for instance, White Craterhoof, Moonshaker Cavalry, right? He's really good because he does give those extra stats and flying, but he doesn't give trample. So if you have a bunch of those 1/1 fairies up, you just go, oh, okay, block a ton of your damage. But this will actually help it get through.
Yeah, Agatha's sweet. She's the first sister that they take down, and Agatha gets the short end of the stick because Hilda gives up her icy crown. Ariat gets captured and then freed by Ashiok. No, Agatha gets murdered by Kellen. She's got this cauldron that like can absorb the souls of people, and she gets pushed into it. And she was like cursing Ruby's brother Peter, who she was out to find, so she gets that. The curse gets lifted, but like, sorry, Agatha, you get murdered.
I mean, isn't that just Grim Fairy Tales in a nutshell? You either win, you get murdered, or something
Ashiok
happens.
frees you.
Yeah,
to be used 5 years later.
Yeah, I saw that written in the fairy tales, like what, 300 years ago?
Yeah, this like shadowy figure.
Yeah, Ashiok.
Yeah, breaks her out. Ashiok's very derivative, actually.
That is Talion, the Kindly Lord at 289. They are below Zero, the Golden Sting, and above Lord of the Nazgul. Talion is a 3/4 for 2 blue and a black. Talion is flying, and it says as they enter the battlefield, you can choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. I definitely think this is interesting and can scale for value depending on who you play against, especially if you can flicker it and change it later in the game if you know what people have. But I think that it is just really just cool, right?
This card is sweet. It's so tough to grade. I want to see this in play. I don't know what the best numbers are going to be. It's probably going to be 2, 3, or 4, but I don't know how often it's going to trigger. Maybe it's a 3 for power. Maybe it's an 8. Maybe it's like a staple, but 5 feels like a good middle ground. We can revisit it later. It's very interesting. I don't think it's that miserable. I think it's like a cam ball, where it's going to stay in play longer than you want it to, and you go, ugh, fine, I'll lose 2, and you draw a card, and they're like, sweet, now here's the 5th one so far.
I saw the enchantment in this set that basically said everything has power and toughness 1/1. Just curious, if you did choose 1 and someone played a creature, would you get the proc off that because it is 1?
I don't know what the card is. If that affects the creatures in play, no. I think there's a curse that makes them 1/1, but I think you have to cast it on the stack, so I don't think the power would change on the stack.
Okay.
There's a lot to think about with this card. It's like very interesting. I want to see if I can like meddle with things on the stack. I don't know if you can. Talian's pretty sweet. They obviously are the ones who like kind of caused this whole thing, but you got to stop the Phyrexians, right? So Talion regrets it, hires Kellen. It's like, Kellen, I'm going to tell you some info about your dad if you take out these witches and give me their artifacts. And Kellen's like, no problem, I'm bored. And he's 16, and he's like, fine, I'll just do it.
I feel like that's just the backstory of half of any sort of like mythical or heroes in general. It's like, do you know who your dad is, or do you know where your mom went? It's like, well, I'll kill this dude if you tell me.
Who do I gotta murder for some information? That feels like a fair exchange. I'll go travel the land and murder some people, and you just like tell me stuff that you already know.
Yeah, it's like you could have just written this in like a note and just handed it to me if you didn't want to tell me to my face.
It's not even important. Like in the grand scheme of the universe, it doesn't matter who Kellen's dad is. It only matters to him. It's like, what a jerk. Not a fan of Talion. I hope we don't see Talion again, although they at least stopped the mess that they started. But let's get to some of like the main characters. This is Will, Scion of Peace, 278 above Zeator and below Urza, Prince of Krug. And he's a new king. He's 1 blue white for a 2/4 Vigi. Spells you cast this turn that are white and or blue cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn, only at sorcery speed. Love the ability. Makes me want to gain life. Makes me want to see like, okay, the spell has to be blue or white. Like, what are the cheekiest spells that I can produce and cheat out? I like definitely gets the wheels turning.
I think this is really fun. I would definitely put like Celestine in this deck too.
Ooh, yeah, you might as well.
I think that's super cool, and I think this entire set takes ideas that we've already had, like life gain or enchantments, and throws them in a completely different direction. I think that makes it so much fun.
I was like, now I want to cast giant spells, but like gain a bunch of life up front, and maybe not all like in little increments of 1. Maybe I want to gain like 10 life and then cast some kind of like storm herd or something. That could be super sweet. As far as lore, Will is the new acting king of Eldraine. We'll get to Rowan. She is yet to be talked about, but she is like going off the deep end on some of the dumbest stuff that I've ever even encountered in a story. That is for another day, but he's fighting against her. He's trying to get the armies rallied against Ashiok and Ariat, and he actually snipes Ashiok with an ice shard, forcing Ashiok to planeswalk away, eliminating their control over like the sleeping armies, and then they can kind of capture Ariat.
That is just an excuse so you don't have to see Ashiok for the next 5 years.
Will just kicked Ashiok out of the story. There's so, I don't know if it was lame or not, but you be the judge. Will is fighting Rowan because she's losing it, and he throws like this pitiful little ice shard, and she's like, ha, you missed. And he's like, I don't know about that. And then like she looks behind her, and like Ashiok's like, oh, and then like planeswalks away, and it's like, oh, come on.
That's so cheesy. I feel
you
like
missed. No, I didn't. My target was something else.
Ashiok's so cool on paper. It's like, I eat your nightmares or whatever.
Don't throw snowballs at me.
And then it's like,
that one had ice in it.
It's like, Ice Splinter, I'm dead.
Yes,
Get me out of here. 5 years.
I'll see you in 5 years when my sleep plans are coming to fruition. Will's great. I think you should play it. We're going to see a ton of Will decks. Super fun. Great artwork. Good job, Will, for not being like a jerk.
Even higher on this list is Yenna, Redtooth Regent at 215. She's above Lorcan, Warlock Collector, and below Maelstrom Wanderer. Yenna is a 4/4 for 2 green and a white. If you pay 2 and tap her, you can choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If it's an aura, untap her, then scry 2, only as a sorcery, though. I think right now we're getting into like the real juice of the set, right?
Like, what is this card? This card is insane.
I think this is so good. Are you putting it in your Imperial Archangel deck?
Yeah, any deck that wants that aura specifically, I just read this and I go, huh? I can just copy all of my auras once, but she just keeps untapping so you can continuously do it. Like, this card is sick. It looks busted. It looks like broken in all the great fun ways. You got to be a specific deck. She wants you to do enchantments, but like she pays you off.
Yeah, I like the fact that it is so good in Commander because I don't see this being that good in Standard or Draft or whatever, because you're going to be making so many of those token rolls and you're going to be having a lot of the same names, I think. But at least in Commander, when, you know, it's all singleton and you're probably not going to be making that many token copies of it, you're just going to get so much value. And only 2 mana, and you could untap her and do it again if it's an aura, which it definitely will be.
Like, oh my God.
Wow.
This card is fantastic. It's amazing. It might even be better than a 7 out of 10 for power. Just everything's a home run, except she loses some points because I don't really know what Yenna's up to. I know she works for... she's employed. She's got a desk job for the elves that turn into foxes.
Yeah, she is. I really like this, though. I mean, because even if you don't copy an aura, you can just copy an enchantment. She just doesn't untap after that. And that's still fine because the Utopia Sprawl that I want, or a Saga that I just want the first mode of again.
Actually, Utopia Sprawl is an aura, so you get the best of both worlds.
Well, whoops. But
that's just Value City.
I just mean like anything that is just value but isn't.
You can't misplay this card.
Isn't an aura.
Just don't bring this card in an artifact deck and you're good. You're just gonna win the game. Next is possibly a card. Is this the Muffin Man? I just thought of this, but it's Brennard, Ginger Sculptor, possibly the Muffin Man. 158 above Frodo. You know, Brennard and then Frodo. And below Zakama. 1 green, white, blue for a 3/3. Each creature you control that's a food or a golem gets +2/+2 and has trample. Whenever the non-token creature you control dies, you can exile. And if you do, you get a copy that's a 1/1 food golem and it has tap 2, sack it, gain 3 life. This card looks amazing. I could again be underrating it. I think 6 is a good starting place, but giving your creatures second lives with bonus upon bonus upon bonus, I'm in.
I mean, that's just, you know, good stuff in a package. And it's also really awesome to see not reanimation, but like, you know, them coming back again, but not in black.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flicker, but it's also like a graveyard type thing. Brennard's cool. He looks so happy doing his job. I can't not give this art a 10. He is living his best life. He's got his little ginger dudes helping him out. They're really cute. I hope he doesn't eat them.
He always reminds me of the like Lord Farquaad because he like rips off the gingerbreads. Like, seems the type. He's like, no, I'll sew those back on for you.
Oh, he's using a needle and thread to sew, like, what is it, flour?
Look, calm yourself. First of all, that was metaphoric.
It was a metaphorical threaded needle. Yeah, I love Brennard. He doesn't have a ton of lore, but being this loving, caring gingerbread maker. Also, he does have some lore. He made Sir Ginger.
Yeah, he is the father of gingerbread men, just like Oko is your dad.
Just like Oko is Kellen's dad. But
and yours.
What? Yeah, and my dad. But that actually brings us to Kellen, who is Oko's son. That was the big reveal. Completely mundane information, if you ask me. The identity of my father is not the crux of any story. Kellen is 155 above Tassiger and below Solfim. And he's 2 in a red for a 2/2 double strike. Other creatures you control get +1/+0 for each aura and equipment attached to Kellen. And he's got an adventure. It's Birthright Boon, 1 and a white for a sorcery. Search your library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Kellen wants you to go big on him, throw things like equipments, even just value stuff. But if you do, he's huge with double strike, and then he bumps your whole team like an overrun type thing.
I really like the idea of commanders having adventure, and this is just such a good one considering it isn't so specific to adventures like the last lady. I don't remember her name, but I do like the fact that it's like, oh, you can tutor for the equipment or whatever. You play him on the field, and if you can sack him or just not make him big, you just go, oh, I'll go get another one.
Yeah, thanks. I'll go tutor my deck again. Tutors are very powerful. It's limited, but I think this is at least a 5 out of 10 for power. I think there's a ton of fun to be had. There's so many different things you can do. Brass Knuckles, make a copy, then he gets the extra equipment, so your creatures get extra big. Or like Bloodforged Battle Axe makes copies of itself. He has double strike. So you're already like, oh man, there's a lot to do. Kellen looks sweet. Kellen's a 16-year-old new hero. I think he's the new main character in the Omen Path story, so you better get used to him. You're probably going to see some more of him. He's Oko's son. What does that mean? I don't know, but he's half fairy. Oko got with his mom, who's a human. And maybe this will have implications in Outlaws of Thunder Junction.
I am just happy that we're getting a new crop of characters, right? Because, Jason Vraska are Phyrexianized or whatever, and we're
Yeah.
tired of the Gatewatch.
I mean, I think Jason Vraska might both be in the next set. Vraska, at least, is going to be in the Outlaws set.
Well, I meant we're tired of them being the main
Right, like, just please stop. Despark them. Throw them into Cowboy Land. I'm so, like, not interested. Kellen, great. New person. Let's see. He seems like a pretty cool dude. The story seems like it's pretty well written, and I'm ready to see. But that brings us to the number 1 commander in the set.
Rowan, Scion of War. She's at 150, right below Niv Mizzet Reborn and above Inga and Asika. Rowan is 4/2 for 1 black and a red. She has Menace, and if you tap her, spells you cast this turn that are black or red, cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. First off, someone's gotta say it. Rowan is hot. Second
It's
off,
been said.
Yes, thank you. Second off, I like the fact this is kind of like anti-Rakdos, right? Like Rakdos the dude, not Rakdos the color.
Yeah, it's like inverse. You lose life, then your spells cost like 0 mana. But paying life is so easy. Fire Covenant, like Wall of Blood, things that say pay 1 life that you could just do over and over, things that make you lose half your life. You can just fire off some huge X spell and just kill everyone. Like, I can throw like Jaya's Immolating Inferno at you for 30, double it with something, and you're just dead.
Peer into the Abyss and then Torment or something?
Yeah, Peer to the Abyss and then Torment or something.
Necropotence?
Throw an Exsanguinate, gain all the life you just lost back. Rowan is really good. She's going to destroy you if you do not kill her like immediately. Even on turn 3, I'm thinking to myself, this could go so bad if we don't answer Rowan.
This is so much value because everyone's going to go, oh, you hit yourself for 20? Like, that can't be that bad. Like, you're at half-life already, and then you're just going to whip out some giant spell and they go, oh, never mind. It's like Crackle.
Crackle with Power? That's a very flavorful because Rowan's in that one.
Ooh.
Yeah, Rowan crackled with power in the story. I don't, okay, let me walk you through this. There's a huge leap that is made. So she's like really upset about the Phyrexian War. Total traumatizing event. It killed her half her family. Her parents are dead. The Wilds of Eldraine, the realms is like splintered. Everyone's like fighting for power. She's trying to help Will reunite everybody. And then something happens where she's just like flips a switch where she's like, you know what would be really great for Eldraine is if everybody was asleep. Eldraine could really use a good rest. So she straight up just starts helping Ariat and Ashiok just like put everybody to sleep. The most bizarre nonsense. There's no line of reasoning that makes any sense with like, yeah, we just like fight off a war and people are really hurting. They should all be asleep. What a joke. I
think it's like a secret tech time to do like, oh, body swapped, someone else is controlling it, or this is, the real Rowan somewhere else. I
hope this is actually Lazav with a flamethrower, I hope, because Rowan, that is a very stupid decision. And what's even worse is she's like team up with Ariat, right? And Ariat at the end of the story is like, just let them capture me. It's fine. We'll pick up where we left off. And Rowan's like, fine. And she leaves. And then Ariat gets captured. Ashiok shows up and's like, let's go. And she's like, well, hold on. Like, I teamed up with Rowan. We're going to make this happen. And Ashiok's like, no, forget her. Forget about it. She's not ready. And then, so like, Rowan's got this stupid new like purpose. Wasn't even her idea. Her partner's not even around. They clearly were just like, yep, you're never going to see Rowan again because we don't have anything else for her to do, but she's got some silly mission.
Oh, pulling an Ashiok, I guess?
That Rowan is the new Ashiok. Maybe they switched bodies, and now we're going to see Ashiok do things. But yeah, that's the ranking every commander. That is the number 1 commander. Even though she is not intelligent, she is very, very powerful, and you're going to see a ton of her. And I would say, if you're looking to see what else you're going to see, the ranking every commander from the previous set is your best bet. What's the fact of the day, Mia?
The fact is, if Oko's your dad, you should tell someone.